Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 535, and today we're doing battle in a standard best of 3 gauntlet. And so this will be our first gauntlet in the post-Worlds meta. I fully expect there just to be absolute tons of Morgana and the Elder Dragon running around. But to me, the big kind of interesting thing with this format is to whether or not you play the big deck, the real good deck, right? The Morgana Elder Dragon Galio deck, or if you look to split all of that stuff apart and play it in different decks. And so, as far as that goes, I'm going to be splitting it apart. I'm a big proponent of playing Elder Dragon, I'm a big supporter of playing Morgana. But I worry too much that if you combine all of those into the same deck, the other decks that you're playing behind that just aren't as good. You might be kind of okay with Karma Sett, or with decks we play, you might be kind of okay with something like Darius Gnar. But once you move beyond that, your third deck tends to be pretty abysmal. Like, I really don't want to be bringing some kind of lineup that looks like the Morgana deck and then Teemo Yumi and then Darius Gnar. Like, that just strikes me as being pretty terrible. And so we're going to be taking the spread them apart kind of strategy. After that, I'm really just kind of looking to ban Shadow Isles. And so the way I'm going to kind of approach this is the way I would like it to happen is if opponent's playing Shadow Isles. So if they're playing Morgana Mordekaiser, or if they're playing the Viego deck, the Viego Elder Dragon deck, we're going to look to take one of those out. If they don't have any Shadow Isles, we're probably just going to ban their Morgana deck. I've designed all of our decks to be fairly good against the Elder Dragon, and so I want to take Morgana off of the table. And then after that, I really just fully expect everybody to be playing some combination of Morgana. And so if it falls down beyond that, it's something we'll have to figure out. But one last kind of tool that I really want to kind of touch on is a lot of the ways that people come in and try and attack the Morgana and the Elder Dragon based decks are going to be with elusives. And so there's dumb decks like Gnar Zed, there's dumb decks like Zed Gwen, there's dumb decks like Teemo Yumi, and then as kind of a backup plan, there are dumb decks like Nora, Nora Elder Dragon. And so while I don't want to go exceptionally far out of our way to try and handle elusives, we want to deal with those if we can, whether or not we can play Loyal Badger Bear, we can play Omen Hawk or whatnot. I want to have some kind of answer to elusives across our decks without going super overboard to try and get there. And so, to bring up the lineup we'll be playing today, first and foremost, we're going to be playing our Yordle Zolani deck. And so, this is a kind of take on the Teemo Kale decks that were popular in the previous standard season. We've swapped out Kale for the Elder Dragon. That allows us to still play Zolani, but then pick up the additionally powerful 6 drops in the Genevieve and the Windsinger. I've been quite happy with this deck. This has been my regular ladder grinder over the course of the past few days. We've got ourselves up to, I don't know, rank 50 or so with this thing. I'm quite happy with how it's been playing out. Deck number 2, we're going to be playing Morgana Udyr. This is a deck that we touched on maybe about a week ago. I like the ideas of boosting up our Mage Seeker Inquisitors with the stat boosts that you get from Omen Hawk and Snowdog and Darkened Spear. And then one of the stronger ways to attack the Elder Dragon's deck is going to be with Champion Strength. And so there's a wide variety of ways that you can go after playing playing this style of deck. You can get, basically any Formidables package with Freylord if you want. That's what we saw a lot of in the previous seasons, but I've been fairly happy with this combination of using Udyr and Morgana together. They synergize quite well together. The bonus, or the cost from the suppressions, I should say, and the cost from the Morgana curses really goes a long way in protecting our Udyr, since the opponent just doesn't have as much mana to spend, and I've been quite happy with how this has played out. Last but not least, we are playing Galio today. I think that you do have a lot of options. I think a more common kind of strategy would be to say play Galio Freylord and then play Morgana along with Mordekaiser, but I don't like the Morgana Mordekaiser deck, and I do really like this style of Galio. And so this is leaning very heavily into the suppression theme. It's got the Balin the Benevolence and the Magical Fetterings, but then it has Legion of the Severed to potentially give Balin the copy of Deathless, and then outside of that, it's your fairly straightforward Formidables deck. But like with the previous one, it does have the Champion Strength in here, so if we are able to come out and generate some width, then we should be able to shut down the big Elder Dragon-based decks with our Champion Strength. And then as we were mentioning right at the beginning, this does have the likes of blocking Badger Bear within it, should we turn up against the other Elusives decks. More heavily so in the Freylord Demacia deck with the full set of Omen Hawks and the Badger Bears, but we didn't completely leave it out of our Formidables deck here. And so that's it. That's what we're doing battle with today. I'm pretty certain that we're paid up on the pay-to-win price. We've been playing all of these decks quite a bit. I feel pretty good that everything in here is going to be premium. And let's jump on into battle. And so we're going to look to play 2 matches within this today. See if we can't get between 4 and 6 games in. See how this plays out. I haven't been playing any best of 3. This is going to be the kind of first taste of it for me. And so I'm interested to see what the format kind of feels like in terms of the decks that people are bringing, what the Elder Dragons look like, if it's going to look a lot like Worlds or if it's going to look something a little bit different. And so, reasonable enough lineup here. Karma Sett, I'm fine to play against with everything. He does have the Shadow Isles Morgana down here at the end, which we're going to ban, but we do have to give like a little bit of credit to the Shyvana Seku Dragons deck. That one can be pretty strong against mid-rangey numbers like our Morgana-based deck here, but I want to go ahead and just remove the Shadow Isles. So let's come in, kick things off with Udyr, see how it goes. The little dragon on bear attacking, little dragon on bear. What do we got here? I want to find some of the unit boosters for the early game. The opponent's very easily going to be able to get bigger boards than us. Their units are just kind of naturally larger than ours, so we need to find our Omen Hawks, we need to find our Snow Dogs, we need our ways to grow the units in the deck so that we can kind of go toe-to-toe with them. So the thing I will kind of call out in this match is we're going to try to avoid making trades. I don't want to be trading our units. That's going to play more into what the opponent's going to do. So if in the early game we trade our 1-drop for their 1-drop, trade our 2-drop for their 2-drop, as things kind of press on that way, the opponent is then going to just play bigger units than all of ours, and we're not going to be building up to champion strength. And so I'm just going to avoid these trades wherever we can, and then we'll try to go a little bit bigger on the board width as opposed to just going bigger with the units. All right, I was a little worried here that if we passed, opponent would just pass and we would miss out on the opportunity to play a unit. He didn't go for it, so we should be able to get something down on board. The Snow Dog is pretty much blanked at this point. I don't want to put it on the board just to trade. So we'll add in the blocking Badger Bear. Both of our units should trade with the Dragon Guard Lieutenant now. And then there's a non-zero chance that he just doesn't have a unit that plays onto this board. They don't really start curving out until about turn 4. So felt fairly safe in that space.
Here they come.
What you got for us? You gonna pick on our little Vulpine Wanderer? I would say that that's probably on the table, but we are safe to just drop something at this point, right? We could look to stance swap the blocking Badger Bear so that if he wants to come at it with the Shyvana, we have the power and toughness to do so. The other option is looking towards just protecting our Vulpine Wanderer from the Pioneer, but none of these sound particularly exciting. Maybe the +2/+2 onto the Badger Bear is not that bad, since it basically says you either have to trade your Shyvana for our Badger Bear, or you have to hook it out of combat if you want the Shyvana to survive for the round. I mean, maybe we just don't even get him in, like, oh, nice. I was gonna say, maybe we just don't even get him in combat at this point. Like, he is a pretty good target for just like boosting Magentleman's duels. Now boosted Morgana comes in. I want to save Morgana for next turn. He's gonna play like a Cloud Drake, and I want to hit the Cloud Drake with the Morgana lockdown. So let's add in the Inquisitor, see if we can't soak up a little bit of his mana. The Inquisitor into the Pioneer feels pretty good, and then we can still hang out with the Badger Bear. He's doing a pretty decent job of restricting the opponent here. Just take the good attack now. He can't play spells anymore now that he added his big boy. The biggest of dogs. Get the 4/5 dog rolling in. So he aces our dude and takes a heal. Not that big of a deal. We could still send Morgana into the fire spitter, and then he's not going to have any particularly strong attacks this turn. He could take a hook with the Shrieking Dragon, but it doesn't kill anything, and then he can't attack with both units. It's a very strong tempo play there. Just going toe-to-toe with the dragons. Alright, he can play spells. Alright, he can block with his unit. That's so much mana he has to spend on that turn. Can't feel good. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a single combat lined up here, but I think this is good. Let's just take the width. He can't really block everything. He can get his blocks in and play his single combat. We can follow up with ours onto something else, and then see where that lands us for the next turn.
I smell fear.
Pretty confident he's going to play a single combat here, though. Form up. Okay. So we can send our single combat down to the left, get this Screeching Dragon off of the board, and then we'll still get the trade onto his Enraged Fire Spitter. So we lose out on Morgana. Sad day for you, but that unit on top of our deck has at least +3/+3. I haven't been tracking how these have been falling, but that's about to be on the table, and we're about to have a Naka back in hand, and so you can just say LOL, it's a Darken if you need to. It's a fun thing to say, right? LOL, it's a Darken. Big old Omen Hawk running through. Okay. I think we just run it out. It's pretty tough for him to have a way to actually kill the Anaka. Right, if you're, he's played one form up, and then he's just gonna have a bunch of strikes, so he's gonna take down one of these snow dogs for certain. But I don't think he can actually stop the Anaka here. Alright, we got a big old Shyvana. So it'll be interesting to see what we draw. Right, we do have, fuck. And say we do have units on top of our deck that are just bigger, right? And so I was gonna say, if we don't draw a unit next turn and attack with a Naka, we're gonna just be summoning a giant unit out of our deck. But there's a touch of a problem here with how that's fallen. Big fucking Udyr though. Let's see how this goes. We're gonna, I think we're gonna need to save the mana with him. Like if he's going to play a strike, right? If he has another strike for Shyvana, which isn't that tough to do, we need to be able to stack on top of it and have our strike hit first with our Udyr getting bonus stats. I mean, I guess he's not big enough to actually take down Shyvana at this point, but that's the kind of idea here. Oh, why doesn't this work? Udyr goes up to 10? Why does this Shyvana survive this? Oh, she heals 5. Fuck.
The wind waits for none.
Alright, GG. That's too much. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we should have just played the Omen Hawk and then moved on to the next turn. It's just like it's so mana inefficient to do it that way. As to where you're like coming down on board with either the Anaka or the Omen Hawk into a 3-bank, and then as you roll into the next turn, you do have the mana for Anaka and the Gentleman's Duel, but you can't play any other cards. To where if we add in the Anaka, we did have the mana to play the Omen Hawk and the Udyr and the Gentleman's Duel, and then potentially come off that way. But I didn't recognize that there could be double strikes with the Fury guy on board. That was a bit of a pretty heavy pain point. But alright, up against Karma Sett, let's take a full mulligan here. We need some of our cheaper plays to get on board. Reasonable enough stuff now with a Broadwing, a Fettering, and a Charger. See how it goes. Combat stuff. Sure. Taking that damage prevent right out the gates. I don't care about this. I'll get the Charger on board, and then we'll see what the next turn is going to look like. I kind of like having protection from his spells with the Shield of Durand in hand, but I'm not, like, super interested in getting really invested in this Broadwing. But we'll see how it plays out, right? If we get to drop the magical Fettering and then still just have mana behind, that's pretty good. Or we just draw an Inquisitor. Pretty good as well. So we'll see. Like it's looking to build up to be a pretty good Jarvan a couple of turns from now, is what I'm kind of interested in. Just getting the big open attack with him. We'll have to see if Sett comes down next turn. Sett is ultimately going to be pretty annoying, but let's see. I'm going to keep the stats up on the Inquisitor. I don't want him just dying to a Mystic Shot in this spot. And then we'll see if he adds in Sett. If he plays Sett, we're going to probably have to Shield of Durand through it, but we can crack back with Jarvan if he hits the board. Nice. Alright, let's just soak all that mana. I like it. So here comes J4, and then we're pretty well built up for a champion strength next turn. Like, we don't have to do it, but he just has no board at this point. It's kind of one of those spots to where the amount of resources it takes to stop the champion strength is enough to keep you from dying, but you essentially just lose the game anyways. So would need to have a deny or bust pretty much. We'll see. I mean, him having a Sett along with a deny would be pretty bad for us. Let's go see how much mana he spends here.
Drinks are cold and gossips.
Okay, we're safe now. So if he has like, he can't play Sett, right? He doesn't have the mana. So if he has the deny for the champion strength, it sucks, but we're still be in pretty good shape. Yep. Sure. And I don't want to play Champion Strength on this turn. I'm going to build up some more board, and then we'll look to play it on opponent's next attack token. So I was looking to get the Broadwing and then the Petricite Charger on board. And then we could look to use Shield of Durand if we need to interact in combat.
Coin buys drink or news. I've got both.
Looks pretty strong though, right? We trade out for his 2 smaller units, and then his smooth mixologists aren't enough to stop the bigger ones.
Providence guide me.
So nice little blasting of damage rolling through, and then next turn again. Champion Strength ready to party. I don't remember how many denies this deck commonly plays. I think it's just 1. I think this second Champion Strength should be pretty safe. We'll have to see. It's always a fun spell to cast though, right? I don't feel like we're going to be casting Champion Strengths in Standard for too much longer. So we gotta get him in while we can. Alright, rip. Alright, on to game 3. Back to Morgana Udyr.
Raise our banners. Demacia prevails.
So not as much, suppression style of stuff with this deck. We don't have the ways to give the Inquisitors Deathless. We don't have the 2 mana spell, but the Karma Sett deck can struggle a little bit when it's trying to face down a lot of stat bonuses, and so they're trying to play Mystic Shots onto your 2 health units. But if your 2 health unit got +2/+2, then it's a little bit stronger. Not quite enough to take it down. Let's see if he's got that Aftershock. This is a pretty big turn. Oh, nice. Gotta like that. Sure. Not really the time you're looking to build into value. Comes up with the Aftershock now. That's fine. So I don't think we need to hang on to single combat mana. Right? He's just going to get punished pretty hard on this upcoming turn by the Inquisitor. It puts him in a spot to where he's either, dealing with the suppression, which doesn't feel very good, or he's just trying to play a 3/4. And the 3/4s don't interact well with the likes of a blocking Badger Bear. Gotta like that. Mariam, sure. Taking mana back.
It will all be on the soon.
Alright, so building up nicely. We should be able to get this Udyr into the Ulseer. We can kind of pivot a little bit if we want. If we really want to push for getting a bunch of stance swaps, we could look to play Wanderer plus Broadwing this turn, bank up the Sky Splitter mana, and then 2 turns from now look to... on the next turn, look to just play Udyr and then have the stance swap for free. But he's so kind of like tanked on mana at this point. I feel like dropping Udyr, dropping the Ulseer, and then putting the stance swap over onto Mageseeker Inquisitor is just going to give us, like, he can get 1 good one in, right? He can get in like 1 good Concussive Palm or 1 good Recall. But it's a pretty big mana investment to try and stop all of this stuff. Like, Concussive Palm is probably his best option at this point. But that's just kind of a band-aid for the turn. Rocket Barrage onto Inquisitor. Guess that's the only thing it can kill. So I definitely want to play one of these stance swaps now while it's free. He can't recall at this point, so let's go ahead and just put it onto Udyr. I think I'm going to... That's a pretty heavy investment, though, if we want to... like I was going to say, if we want to put Overwhelm onto Udyr, that's too much. Because I'd really prefer it if we get to attack with Udyr and then... like, if he gets Concussive Palmed, we don't get the cheap discount on the stance swap. Doesn't have that either. Okay.
Something I said.
But we still have nice combos for next turn. We're going to play our additional stance swap here. We'll go ahead and... Well, this Allseer is probably just dead, right? Well... I'm just going to put it on onto the Badger Bear. It's like, the thing I'm looking at is we can go into next turn and then single combat Udyr onto someone. And then that'll put a stance swap into our hand. Then since it'll be our first stance for the turn, we can play it for free off of the Allseer. But trying to spend it on Allseer here, it's just gonna be a problem.
I have found such beauty in mortality.
Alright, this is nice. This should be a pretty big game breaker. Like, if he wants to get things happening with the Sett, it's just a gigantic amount of mana to do so. So Morgana did her part. Let's protect the Allseer. Now we can single combat Udyr into Sett. Oh no, we don't have the mana for that. That's okay. He didn't have any blockers at the moment. It is kind of a bummer to just drop single combats onto Sett anyways, since he's able to... it doesn't get any good usage out of that stance, or out of that shackles. So here, I could see an argument for not attacking immediately. It just my big worry is a concussive palm. Like, seems like if he had a concussive palm, he would have played it on the previous turn. But it's like if we're adding units to the board and he's getting the chance to basically get 2 units on the board, it's a bit of a problem. But nonetheless, able to take it down at the end of the day. GG. Let's get ourselves into this final match. See what we can do. Maybe we'll get to play the Zolani deck if you're not familiar with it. And so, what do we got? We got the Maokai mill deck. That's fine. That's a deck usually typically looking to prey on opposing Mordekaiser decks. There is Gnar, which is fine, and then the Eddie Dragons deck, which we're going to go ahead and ban out. I feel fairly comfortable against Maokai with this. It's it is a bit of a removal pile, but we can keep them kind of back foot for a long time. So it's not as easy for them to kind of stack off on like building up to the Maokai. Alright, though, up against Gnar Zed. Reasonable kickoff here with the Teemo and the Yordle Explorer. Not excited to pick up Eddie, but is what it is, you know. Is what it is. So I'm curious to see how this first turn will play out. The opposing deck has Omen Hawks in it, which is kind of annoying, and then it also has the Navori Blade Scout, right? I'm curious to see if he ever tries to play a Blade Scout to shut down Teemo for a turn, because that feels like a win for us. But Omen Hawk's a pain. Yep. We'll just wait. This is a pretty low value unit. We just need to kind of not die. And if we're not dying, sure.
Let the commerce commence. Walk softly, strike quickly.
Trading early with the Omen Hawk doesn't really lend itself to that not dying. Alright, so we add in Bandle City Mayor. Some interesting choices with the Grandfather Fae coming up. The Blast Cone Seedling just being cheap. Getting it on board with Barrier can make for a pretty good Zed block. I don't think we really need the width at this point from the Grandfather Fae. I think we want this Seedling. I just want to take the cheap one.
Where's my speech?
Oh wow, his mustachiness himself!
Another expedition?
Look at that. Aggro Bandle City Mayor rolling in. That's what you want to see.
Do not fear the shrouded path.
Quietly now.
Alright, Timo, get out here and do your blocking thing.
They won't suffer long.
Interesting. I don't think he has the combat trick here. Feels like if he has the combat trick, he would have just slammed the Zed right in.
Hang on, Zern. Baddies beware. Mama's got a gun.
Alright, and then another pretty good set of attacks on this next turn. Let's add in Parapo. Very, very good chance we can completely fill out the board with units here. There is some desire to get Gnar on board since the Pokey Stick can take down one of these elusives, but just so many stats coming out of this, and ooh, Bandle Commando is huge. Picking up another elusive is fantastic. If we get, if A, one of our Bandle Commandos gets through in combat, and then B, Bandle City Mayor doesn't die, we get to start adding, we get to start adding the little fairies to the board for free. Very strong stuff. We already didn't add any cards. I'm not certain how to read into that. Like, this isn't a deck that plays Harsh Winds. It might just be a Three Sisters. I don't know. This strikes me as very strange.
You call that sneaky?
If you're interested in this Gnar Zed deck, we touched on it on a video 2 or 3 videos back. I really don't like the Elusives version of this. I think that's hot garbage. We are playing an Overwhelms version that I felt like just worked much, much better. Interesting he's taking down the Yordle Explorer as opposed to the Bandle City Mayor. Happy to see it. Sure, a bunch of combat tricks. They're doing stuff. They're winning these combats, but they're not, like, dealing damage. Here's our free Owlcat. Yeah, seems reasonable. Block. You just say it before they even come in, right? I think that's how you're supposed to do it.
A quest? Leave it to me. Only the worthy survive.
All right, so here comes Zed. Do we want to go for the takedown, or do we want to protect our... Right, we can either just like throw away the bird, or I think we just want to prevent damage. Let's do this.
This is Mama's house.
We can take the 1 hit off the Living Shadow. It's like we could potentially put the Yordle Captain in front of the Zed to try and pull out some combat tricks. I just don't think we need to do that. We're still looking pretty strong here. We're going to have a full board on this next attack. Zed's still in crappy blocker mode. And if he's playing his Wuju styles and playing his... you see that 10-10 Zolani comes in when the opponent's at 6. Some of these versions play Homecoming. We'll take the safer route with the width splat. you gotta like seeing that turn up. Alright, feeling pretty good about this. It's like he either has to add a unit and not play a bunch of combat tricks, or if he plays a bunch of combat tricks, we have enough stats on board to get the kill. He needs a 4th blocker, but even with the 4th blocker, we have 2 from the Seedling, 3 from the Yordle Explorer. Those are our 2 smallest, and then a Pokestick coming out of Gnar next turn. I guess the Pokestick could get nopified or something, but feels like we're pretty far ahead. But I think this game kind of illustrates why I don't really like the Elusive's version of this. Is, you know, we just kind of accidentally countered a bit of the Elusive strategy, right? And so when I was talking about this deck, it's like you have the opportunity to like just play Overwhelms to where you're singularly focused in on one strategy, but what this Elusive's version is doing is it's kind of half-assing it, and you can see the problem there as to where like we incidentally interacted with some of his elusive units, and it caused him a massive problem, right? And so we had the Teemos, we had the Bandle Commandos to just come out and interact with some elusives. We aren't trying our hardest to stop elusives, but we have a couple in our deck, and when that like hamstrings half of your deck, the other half has to really come in and pick up the slack, and that's just not quite what happens when the power is split across, to where if you're just playing Overwhelms across the board, you know, you're able to really make usage out of the kind of singular attack, to where you attack with all of your Overwhelms, you get a trade, you deal a point of damage, and then you know, maybe you positively interact with their one big unit, and then the rest of your units are crashing through. So here I'm not going to block the Blade Scout. I'm fine if he starts adding in the 2/2, the Navori Conspirators, and then we'll just save the Omen Hawk for a block a little bit later, or for a Green Glade duo. This guy kind of sucks now, right? if you don't have the Conspirator to bring him back to hand, he's not doing very much. But happy enough to trade with the Tusk Speaker. If he's not dealing the, or if he dies in the blocking side of combat, he's not dealing any damage, so feels like a win. Sure. It's a big old snow dog. Slap that one right on the board. Sad face. I know, my dude. I know.
The Yordle here's with me.
A warrior needs a drum beat.
Alright, I think this is all fine. We might finally be blocking this Blade Scout now, but I'm looking to use the Inner Beast onto the Omen Hawk to block the Green Glade duo, and then we'll just kind of figure it out from there. You know, if we need to play a single combat, that's pretty okay. How do we feel about this? He's out of mana, so we could put +2/+2 onto the Snow Dog and just be ready to go in the face of the Saurion. And then, you know, if it comes down to stance swapping Overwhelm onto the Snow Dog, it's not that crazy of an idea. Let's see what happens. I gotta stop and double check my mathematics, though. He's big enough now. He's big enough.
They'll never see us coming.
Ooh, then he leaves him at home? I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
He will slow them. Hang on, Thurn.
So, I mean, we do still have to worry about stuff like homecomings, but... I don't think we're in any kind of hurry here. If he passes, we can pretty safely pass. We just want to build up to some of these spells.
Hang on, Buzzball.
Hey! Anyone gathered here is an enemy of the crowd.
Full speed ahead.
It's coming at us. Alright, I mean, I suspect there's going to be some kind of Wuju style or something happening on this turn, but it's not going to be a very significant amount of damage coming through. The entombs. Huh. Well, this is our shot to just get this guy off a board. So yeah, I mean, as long as we just don't die, I think we're going to be in pretty tip-top shape here. We have a great hook on this turn, and we could look to build into a champion strength. And if it really comes down to it, we could just champion strength this turn, but I'm certain he's going to play some kind of card here, right? He's probably got a combat trick to protect against the Inquisitor and stuff. It doesn't seem like a turn to where it's just going to happen. Gotta watch himself here. When we have the ram stances on hand, you gotta watch yourself. You might just get you might just get cracked by the 1 damage AoE. So there is another chance to be pretty aggressive here and look to put overwhelms on our dudes, but I mean, this is gonna be a pretty big champion strength, right? I don't think you can attack through all of this.
They'll never see us coming.
All right, well, this is it, right? If he's got a way to come up with like 11 damage, then we're gonna be hurting. Why is he playing this preemptively? We can just take the damage, right? He's not gonna kill us, and he's not gonna have a way to rally. Let's just not get involved in that combat. So if he wants to start playing like Wuju styles and stuff, and taking down our units, that's not good. But this is the kind of deck where we know he's not going to rally. There's no way for him to hit with a bunch of overwhelm or something. Like I think that was the safer way to go about it. We do have this stance swap in hand. We could put down an overwhelm. Probably should at this point. Like, I think if his last card is Homecoming, then we just outright win the game anyways. But now if he puts the 4 health Gnar in front of Snowdog, he has to have like a Wuju style to not die. And then even if he does have one, we should just win on the open attack next turn. Alright though. GG. Well played. Not a bad set of battles. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And so, yeah, I think that was pretty interesting. That last match was what I was talking about in terms of do you really want to stack all of your Elder Dragon decks together? And so it seems like, he had the access to the Morgana Elder Dragon deck. He chose to play it. That's fine. What is your next best deck that he's playing? There's a lot of good matchups for the Maokai Mordekaiser deck, but it is super polarized in what it's good against, right? It's good against the slow decks that can't kill you before turn 8, turn 9, turn 10. And then there was the Gnar Zed deck. And so it looks like he was intending on, say, being good against opposing Elder Dragon decks, which are probably much more different than the Elder Dragon deck that we're actually bringing out. But, which of those decks actually feels good to me? I know I'm a little biased in the sense that I don't want to play a deck like Maokai. I think it's just fucking boring, so I won't play it. But it feels like you plateau off on the strength of your decks just super super fast. And so with the first match, I don't entirely remember what he was playing. I think he had Morgana Mordekaiser, and we just banned that out, right? But that's one to where I think it's a little bit closer to where if you're playing Elder Dragon Morgana, and then you play Karma Sett, and then you come up with another deck that's kind of close in power level, that makes a little bit of sense to me. But it just feels like that full champion stack is not the way to go. Just getting your Elder Dragon deck banned out, right? You enter a match and you say, okay, what decks did you play in the match that you lost? And you say, I played Mordekaiser Maokai and I played Zed Elusives. So you got to start up and say you're way down in the tier list in terms of being good. And so that's kind of why I like the split that we're doing. I'm not sold entirely on the lineup that we're bringing. I can most certainly concede that we should probably just play Maokai, or you should probably just play Mordekaiser Morgana as opposed to the one that we have. But these are a lot of decks that I like. I like the strategies coming about these, and it definitely feels good not bringing the Elder Dragon Morgana Galio deck. Just taking that, chopping it up across the 3 decks as we've done here today, feels just much stronger to me than having to play a bunch of sub-tier decks whenever your one good deck gets banned out. And so I think that's probably the big takeaway from the video. But nonetheless, good stuff. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Busted Me. Thank you for being here.